Hello there, welcome back to Shaun by the Fire. To make up for the lack of videos, I decided to read chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6. Anyway, please enjoy listening. Chapter 3. Clooney the Scourge lay upon his bed, racked with crippling pains. Rat captains gathered in the corner of the sick room. They sat silent. The terrible injuries would have proved fatal to any other rat on Earth, but not to Clooney. A broken arm, a broken leg, numerous cracked ribs, a fractured tail, smashed claws, and other hurts not yet diagnosed. Red Tooth and 4 of the others might have set upon their leader and finished him off for good, but the fear of his legendary powers was too strong. Nobody knew for sure the extent of Clooney's remorseless vitality. Watching him now, the barrel-like chest heaving up and down, the still strong tail swishing spasmodically, Red Tooth marveled at Clooney's strength. He was not even sure if Clooney was shamming, pretending that his injuries were severe, merely as some kind of test or trap that he had set for his captains. The 12 sentry rats were locked in the hut they had been set to guard. It was now repaired. They had been soundly flogged for letting the Vole family escape. As a further punishment for concocting lies about a big hare and a young mouse, Redtooth ordered that the 12 be starved until further notice. He had been lenient with them. Clooney would have sentenced them to death and personally killed them with his bare claws. Outside in the churchyard, the leaderless horde did absolutely nothing to reorganize. Sitting about, licking their wounds and waiting for the chief to recover seemed to be the order of the day. Again the mouse warrior, armed with his ancient sword, returned to haunt Clooney's fevered dreams. Once more, he was falling from the plank on the abbey wall. Falling. Below him waited spectral figures. Ragia, with a blue face bloated to many times its normal size. A rat skeleton, dressed in Clooney's own battle armor. A huge hare with enormous feet, and a thick-bodied, venomous-looking banded snake. He tried to twist away from them as he fell, but however much he swerved and tried to change direction, Clooney had only to look down to see the fierce-eyed warrior mouse, waiting. Always waiting. The sword held point upward for him to be impaled upon. Clooney tried to cry out, but not a sound came. It was as though his throat were being squeezed tightly. He felt the sharp sword pierce his chest. Bong! Once more the sound of the Joseph bell tolling out across the fields from RedWall wakened the warlord. Fangburn, who was trying to extract a piece of elm branch from his chief's chest, leapt backwards in fright as Clooney's eye snapped open inches from his own. "Get away from me!" Clooney rasped. Fangburn retreated, mumbling excuses. Clooney eyed him suspiciously. He didn't trust any of them. "If you really want to help, go and get hold of some of those new recruits who live locally, and bring them here to me," he gasped. Within minutes, Fangburn had assembled a band of the recruits around Clooney's bed. "Where's Scrag? The weasel?" Clooney growled. Chief's thief stepped forward, wiping imaginary tears from his face with the back of a filthy claw.
"You remember, Chief? He fell out of a big tree. After I'd taken care of you, I went back for him, but when I got to him, the poor weasel was dead. Oh, what a good, kind-hearted
shut
weasel."
your moaning face, said Clooney irritably. "If he's dead, and that's that. Here, you recruits, come closer and listen to me."
Apprehensively, the little group shuffled forwards. Clooney raised himself slightly on one elbow.
"Do any of you know where a healer can be found? I don't mean one like those mice. I need a creature that knows the old ways. A gypsy. One who could cure anything for the right price."
Kilconey the ferret bowed elaborately.
"'Tis your lucky day, your honour, for don't I know the very vixen?" "Foxes?"
echoed Clooney.
"Aye, foxes, sir," the ferret replied. "Didn't me old mother always used to say, there's nothing like a fox to fix? There's a whole tribe of 'em living across the meadow, sir. Old Sailor the vixen is the girl you'll be wanting. Her and her son, a chicken hound. They'll fix you up as right as rain if there's something in it for them. And does your honour want me to fetch them?"
Slowly, Clooney's tail wound itself about the ferret's neck, drawing him in close.
"Get them," Clooney said hoarsely. "Find the foxes and bring them here to me."
Kilconey's throat bulged as he tried to nervously swallow.
"I will indeed, if you'll just let go of this poor old ferret's neck, sir. I'll go as fast as if the devil himself was chasing me. You lay back now and rest your noble self, sir.
Clooney released the ferret and lay back with an agonized sigh. Now is the time to think and plan ahead. Next time would be different. "Redtooth," he called. "Take some soldiers and scout around. See if you can find a great hard timber, a big log or tree trunk, something that will serve as a battering ram." The mice might have won the battle, but Clooney had not yet lost the war. By the claws of Hell Thunder, those Abbey mice were going to pay with blood for what they had done to Clooney the Scourge. Chapter 4. Brother Methuselah was busy with a small brush and a pot of black ink. As he brushed the dust of ages from each letter on the wall, he filled it in with ink. This would make it easier to read the message that had been graven underneath the tapestry.
"Ah, Matthias, there you are,"
Methuselah squeaked. He blinked over the top of his glasses at the young mouse.
"Look, this is something I want you to see. Quite by accident, I discovered this writing beneath where Martin's picture once hung."
Matthias was full of unconcealed excitement. "What does it say, Brother Methuselah?" he cried. The old gatehouse keeper sneezed as he brushed more dust from the lettering on the wall.
"All in good time, young mouse. Here, make yourself useful. You brush the dust off the words while I ink them in. Between us, we'll soon get it done."
Matthias set to work with an energetic goodwill. He scrubbed vigorously, sending up clouds of dust. Between sneezes, Methuselah hurried to keep pace with him. 1 hour later, they both sat on the stone floor, drinking October ale to quench the dust, whilst they admired their handiwork.
"It's written in the old hand,"
said Methuselah.
"but I can read it clear enough."
Matthias jostled him boisterously. "What does it say, old one? Hurry up and read it to me."
"Patience, you young scallywag,"
chided the ancient mouse.
"Be quiet and listen. It takes the form of a poem. Who says that I am dead knows naught at all. I am that is. 2 mice within RedWall. The warrior sleeps twixt hall and cavern hole. I am that is. Take on my mighty role. Look for the sword in moonlight streaming forth. At night, when day's first hour reflects the north. From o'er the threshold, seek and you will see. I am that is. My sword will wield for me."
Matthias blinked and scratched his head. He looked at Methuselah. "Well, what did all that mean? It's a riddle to me."
"Precisely," said the old mouse. "It is indeed a riddle. But don't worry, Matthias. We will solve it together. I have sent for food and drink. You and I will not move from here until we have the answer."
Shortly afterwards, Cornflower arrived bearing a tray of breakfast for them both. Nut bread, salad, milk, and some of Friar Hugo's special quince pie. She was about to strike up a conversation with Matthias when Methuselah sent her packing.
"Shoo! Away with you, little field mouse. I need Matthias with a clear brain to help me solve an important problem. So run along."
Cornflower winked at Matthias, shook her head at Methuselah, and walked off with mock dignity, her nose high in the air. Matthias watched her go until Methuselah tweaked his ear.
"Pay attention now, young mouse. We must study this bit by bit. Let's take the first 2 lines. Who says that I am dead knows naught at all."
Matthias waved a paw. His mouth filled with salad, he mumbled. "But do we know that Martin is dead?" Methuselah took a sip of milk, pulled a wry face, and reached for his October ale.
"Ah, but if we suppose that he is dead, then the words tell us we know nothing at all. So let us assume that he is alive."
"What? Do you mean Martin alive and walking about?" said Matthias. "We'd recognize him, unless, that is, he was disguised as someone else." The old gatehouse keeper choked, spluttering ale over his habit.
"Good grief! I never looked at it that way. Very good, young one. Maybe the answer is in the next 2 lines. What do they say? I am that is. 2 mice within RedWall."
Matthias repeated the words, but he could make no sense of them. "I am that is. What is? 2 mice within RedWall. 2 mice it tells of."
"Of 2 mice in one,"
replied Methuselah. They sat silent a while, both racking their brains. Matthias mentioned something that was bothering him as he looked at the graven lines. What I cannot understand is that sort of dash. Look, I am that is. Do you see? There's a small dash between the words I and am. In fact, the same dash occurs 3 times throughout the rhyme. Here, here, and here, Matthias pointed. Methuselah adjusted his glasses and peered closely.
Yes, you may have something there. It could be the key to the whole thing. I am that is. Let's say the dash separates the line, so that we look at the last 3 words. Am that is. Suppose we took that part out. Then it would read, I, 2 mice within RedWall.
Matthias shook his head. What do you make of that?
Complete nonsense, replied the old mouse. Now let's stick with am that is.
It sounds all mixed up to me, Matthias grumbled. Methuselah looked up sharply.
Say that again.
Say what again? You mean that it sounds all mixed up to me? Methuselah executed a little jig of delight. He patted the wall with his paw, shouting,
That's it! That's it! Why couldn't I see that? It's all mixed up, of course.
The old mouse took a great draught of ale. Cackling with glee, he pointed a paw at Matthias.
I know something that you don't know. Am that is. Matthias.
The young mouse frowned, so the old one had finally cracked. He was in his second infancy. Methuselah, he said kindly, hadn't you better lie down a while? But the old gatehousekeeper kept pointing. He began to chant,
Matthias, I that am. Matthias, you that are.
The young mouse stood tapping his tail in exasperation. I wish you'd tell me what you're so excited about, he said severely. Methuselah wiped tears of laughter from his eyes as he explained.
When you said it was all mixed up, that got me thinking. Martin was talking of 2 mice, himself and another. Ergo, Martin is represented by the word I. The other mouse is am that is. All mixed up. Now do you see?
Matthias leaned against the wall. I'm afraid I don't follow you.
Oh, you young booby.
Methuselah giggled.
I mixed the letters up and rearranged them. It's your own name. Am that is. Matthias.
Are you sure? Said Matthias in astonishment.
Of course I'm sure, replied Methuselah. It couldn't mean anything else. Your name has 8 letters in it. So has am that is. An M, 2 A's, 2 T's, an H, an I, and an S. Whichever way you look at it, Matthias or am that is, it comes out the same.
Methuselah, do you realize what this means? The old mouse sat down beside him, nodding gravely.
Oh, yes, indeed I do. It means that Martin somehow knew that one day he would live on through you.
Matthias was staggered. He knew about me? Martin the warrior knew my name? Can you imagine that? The enormity of it overwhelmed them both. For several minutes they sat, no word passing between them. Suddenly, Matthias leapt to his feet. Right, let's get on with it. Look at these lines. The warrior sleeps twixt hall and cavern hole. I am that is. Take on my mighty role.
Well, the last 2 lines are pretty clear, said Methuselah. They mean that Martin, carrying on through you, has a great task to perform.
What about the first 2 lines? Matthias said. They seem fairly obvious too. Between Great Hall and Cavern Hole, there's a flight of stairs. Come on, old mouse. In spite of his advanced years, Methuselah gripped Matthias's paw and ran so fast that the younger mouse had difficulty in keeping up. Between Great Hall and Cavern Hole, there were 7 stone steps. The problem was, which one held the answer?
Thinking caps on again, said the old mouse. Let's make a close inspection of these steps.
Together, they examined the stone steps minutely, going back over each one several times. Matthias sat on the bottom step. He shrugged. They appear to be 7 ordinary broad stone steps. Nothing special. Quite the same as any other set of stairs in the abbey, wouldn't you say? Methuselah was forced to agree. After sitting a while and letting his eyes roam about, Matthias remarked, "I've just noticed something. The name of our abbey is carved into the wall as you go up the steps on the left-hand side. And also as you descend on the right-hand wall, it reads RedWall either way." Methuselah walked up and down the steps, testing what Matthias had said.
"Yes, so it does. Do you see that each letter is 1 step's width? 7 letters for 7 steps. Surely that must be some kind of a hint."
Again the two friends sat to ponder the mystery. This time, it was Matthias's turn to become excited and point a paw at his companion. "I know something that you don't know." Methuselah pursed his lips in annoyance.
"You know, Matthias, for a mouse that claims affinity with Martin the Warrior, you can be singularly foolish sometimes."
"Huh, no more foolish than you were when you were saying the same thing to me not so long ago," Matthias retorted. Methuselah coughed and cleaned his spectacles on his habit.
Yes, I apologize. Now please tell me what you have discovered."
Matthias explained. "If you place the word RedWall running both ways as it does here, you will notice that only one letter occurs in the same place, the letter W. Furthermore, if you were to turn a W upside down, it becomes a letter M, which stands for Martin. Matthias. Oh, and also for Methuselah, my old friend."
"Well, curl my whiskers. The young scoundrel has a brain and it works too. It's got to be the 4th step, the middle one, up or down."
The step in question proved to be as solid and unmoving as its counterparts. Even with their combined strength, the friends could not budge it a fraction. Matthias wiped sweat from his brow. "Take a breather, old one. I know who can handle this. The Formol and his team." The moles were not too long in arriving. They gathered around the step, sniffing and scratching. The Formol exercised his authority, clearing them out of his way.
"Your moles, get out and loit. Letting them dog at bone there."
Formol paced the length of the step, then shuffled sideways over it. He tapped it with his great digging claws. He sniffed it, licked it, and rubbed it with his velvet head.
What you gentlemen know about this here step?"
he asked. Together they related all the information to the attentive Formol. He blinked short-sightedly as he ruminated.
4th and upwards, same downwards. You're Walt, Dobby? Bain't that same as your grandmum do find when she'm rootin' about olden time fortifications?"
"What's he saying?" whispered Matthias. Methuselah translated the curious mole dialect.
"Formol said the 4th step upwards is the same as the 4th step down. That much we already know. When he consulted the 2 mole brothers, Walt and Dobby, it seems the step is the same one found by their grandmother when she was exploring an old-fashioned castle or fortification. Moles are very sensible creatures, you know, and I think they have the answer to our problem."
"Good old Formol," said Matthias.
"Hush! Let's hear what Walt and Dobby have to say,"
whispered Methuselah. The 2 mole brothers respectfully tugged their noses to the Formol before answering.
That be true, sir. Our grandmum, she'm find lots of them."
"Aye, that she do."
"Never digging or breaking, just turn 'em after dusting."
Methuselah interpreted to Matthias.
"Apparently, their grandmother was somewhat of an authority on steps such as these. The clever old mole would neither dig nor break them. Evidently, she could turn the step over once she had brushed it."
Matthias addressed the Formol courteously. "Excuse me, sir, but do you know how to deal with this step now? If you do, then my friend and I would only be too willing to help you." Formol smiled, his whole face almost vanishing into dark velvet wrinkles. He clapped Matthias on the shoulder in a chummy way. The young mouse was amazed at the weight and strength of Formol's paw. He was glad that it was a friendly pat. Formol chuckled deeply.
Nay, bless your little heart, Matwise. You knowed Methuselah be but Moses. Best leave her to Formol. I'll deal with him."
"He says he can cope adequately without either of us,"
said Methuselah. The Formol produced a thick, fine-haired hand brush from his tunneling kit. Bending close, he brushed furiously at the upper and lower insteps of the 4th stone. As he swept, he snuffled and blew, following the path of his brush. It soon became apparent that the stone had been cunningly jointed. The dust came away to reveal a continuous hairline crack which ran around the edges of the step. Next, Formal rummaged in his kit and came up with a tin of grease and a strong thin bar, one end of which was flattened like a spatula. Smearing the grease liberally on top of the third step, Formal inserted the flat metal tip against the base of the fifth step. He dealt the blunt end of the bar a smart blow, setting it firmly into the crack. With a swift movement, he levered the fourth step an inch forward, exposing a long, dark gap. With a grunt of satisfaction, Formal called out to his team, "Here, moles, gather round and set your digging claws in 'em crack." The mole team dug their claws into the gap, chanting together as they heaved with a will. "Here she come, if and you please, moving boulder, sliding grease." To the astonishment of the watching mice, the step slid smoothly outwards on the greased stone. It turned completely over to reveal a dark opening with a downward flight of stairs, running off into the blackness below. Chapter 5. Old Sailor the Vixen muttered her charms and spells in a sing-song voice. Sometimes she did a hopping little dance around the sickbed. Clooney was not fooled. He watched as the fox sprinkled magic herbs on the pillow, reciting another strange spell as she did so. The old fraud, Clooney thought. All that mumbo-jumbo and magic nonsense. Why does she need it when she knows that she's a perfectly good doctor? Sailor had placed herb poultices and healing salves on all the warlord's wounds. After bandaging them neatly, she had administered a potion that would deaden the pain and induce sleep. Clooney was satisfied. He had been treated by healers many times before. Sailor was the best. All the added muttering, dancing, and trickery was done merely to enhance her reputation, to pull the wool over the eyes of stupid, ignorant creatures. She may be a fox, but she'll never outfox me, Clooney thought to himself. Sailor had assured him that with 3 weeks' rest, combined with her healing skills, he would be fighting fit once more. 3 weeks! At first the rat leader had raged and swore. He had never been out of action that long in all his life, but secretly he knew that the fox was right. Without her, Clooney would have been dead, or permanently crippled. Like all of her kind, Sailor was a slippery character. What did she expect to gain from all this? Loot and plunder from RedWall. Sailor had never been allowed past the Abbey gates. She was certain that if Clooney's army overran RedWall, there would be enough treasure to keep even the greediest creature happy for life. Now, as the potions took effect, Clooney felt himself drifting off to sleep, lulled by the ceaseless chantings and murmurings of old Sailor. He would have come awake like a scorched tiger had he had known what the fox was actually up to. Old Sailor had lived on her wits for many years. She was a counter-spy by nature. In any dispute or conflict, she invariably sold secrets to both sides. It was a dangerous game, but one that she had played well thus far. Her crafty, golden eyes had not been idle for a second since entering Clooney's camp. Sailor knew exactly how many rats, weasels, stoats, and ferrets were able-bodied enough for combat. Also, she had seen the working party gnawing industriously at the base of a tall poplar. If that wasn't going to be used as a battering ram, then Sailor was a trout. And by her own diagnosis of 3 weeks, she knew the day when the date of the next attack on RedWall would be. The Vixen watched Clooney's eyes closing under the influence of her medicine. These warlords were all the same. They never gave credit for brains to anyone except themselves. There the big oaf was, snoring like a fox cub in his earth on a winter's night. She turned to the armed rats who guarded the sick room. She issued orders in a confidential whisper.
"I want no noise, please. Your chief must have complete rest. Don't let him exert himself when he wakes. Now, you'll have to excuse me."
She made her way to the door. Fangburn and Redtooth stood barring it.
"Where do you think you were off to, fox?"
Sailor licked her lips. She tried to look kindly but earnest.
"Actually, I was going back to my den to replenish my stock of herbs. That's if you wish me to treat your leader properly, of course."
Redtooth prodded her with a spear.
"Clooney gave strict orders that you must stay here until he's better."
The sly fox blustered.
"But my good rats, surely you must realize that I can do nothing without my stock of herbs. Now please, let me pass."
Fangburn shoved her roughly.
"Sit down. You're not going anywhere."
Sailor seated herself. Her mind was racing.
Then at least let me go out into the churchyard. I've got to have some fresh air. Besides, I can tell my young assistant what herbs I require, and he can fetch them for me."
Redtooth was not convinced.
But the chief said you've got to stay here.
Sayla smiled inwardly. She had them where she wanted them now. She put on a serious expression, shaking her head gravely.
Then you had better let me have your names. That way I can tell Clooney when he awakes full of pain with festering wounds. No doubt he'll want to know who it was that stopped me trying to cure him.
This crafty statement did the trick. After a few whispered words between the two rats, Redtooth turned to Sayla.
Listen, Fox. You can go out into the churchyard and tell your assistant to run this errand. But Fangburn here will be right beside you with a cutlass in your ribs. One false move out of you, and you'll be a dead healer. Is that clear?
Sayla smiled ingratiatingly.
By all means, let your friend come along. I have nothing to hide.
Out in the churchyard, Chickenhound, who was the son of Sayla, sat sunning himself on a tombstone. Fangburn did not see the secret wink that passed between the two foxes. Chickenhound was as devious as his mother in matters of espionage. His face was a picture of blank innocence as he listened to Sayla's instructions.
Now listen very carefully, my son. We have a very sick rat inside that church. He is in urgent need of my special remedies. I want you to run as quickly as you can back to our den. Bring me back some snakewort, cuckoo spit, a medium eel skin, 3 fine strips of willow bark. There's so much to remember. I'd better write it all down for you.
Sayla turned to Fangburn.
Do you carry any writing materials with you, sir?
Fangburn spat scornfully at the fox's feet.
Are you trying to make fun of me, healer? What do you think I am? Writing materials, the idea of it.
Sayla smiled disarmingly.
I thought not. Sorry, no offense. I'll just make do with some bark and a burnt twig. Where could I obtain such things, please?
Fangburn pointed sullenly with his cutlass.
Over there by the cooking fire. Be quick about it.
A few minutes later, Sayla had presented Chickenhound with a scroll of bark that she had written upon.
There, that should do it. Now hurry along, my son. Don't stop for anything on the way. Isn't that right, Captain?
Fangburn puffed out his chest, proud that the fox knew his rank. He pointed a claw at Chickenhound.
You listen to what your mother tells you, young feller. Get back here with the stuff on that list as soon as possible. Be off with you now.
The young fox took off like a rocket. Fangburn leaned on his cutlass.
That's the way you deal with young'uns.
Sayla looked at him admiringly.
Indeed it is, sir. He never goes that fast for me. It's obvious that you've got an air of command about you.
Fangburn coloured slightly. This vixen wasn't such a bad creature after all. He gestured modestly to the church with his cutlass.
I think it's time we went back inside. Orders, you know.
Oh, quite. Can't have you getting in trouble, can we?
Said Sayla in her best smarmy tone. As soon as he was out of sight of Clooney's stronghold, Chickenhound slowed to a leisurely walk. He unfastened the bark scroll and read his mother's message. To the abbot of RedWall Abbey, I know exactly when, where, and how the hordes of Clooney will attack your abbey. What price will you give me for this important information? Sayla the Vixen. Chickenhound sniggered noisily. He knew precisely what his mother required him to do. He recalled Sayla's favorite saying.
I've sold hens their own eggs back and stolen the whiskers from farmyard dogs.
The young fox ambled along the dusty road to RedWall, the hedgerows echoing with the sound of his sly chuckles. Chapter 6. Cornflower was having a very busy day. Having delivered food to Matthias and Methuselah, she went out on the ramparts accompanied by her helpers. They fed the sentries and took back all the dishes. Next, she found herself making an extra 2 trays of food up for Silent Sam's parents. The 2 squirrels thanked her politely and set to with an appetite. Little Sam stood watching them, sucking his paw. Cornflower had a special soft spot for the baby squirrel. She made up a tray for him, too. She had no sooner finished when Constance called to ask a favor of her. Would she mind making up another 4 trays? 3 for the Vol family, who had just returned, and an extra large one for Basil Stag Hare. Cornflower cheerfully obliged. Standing by, her eyes grew wide with amazement. She had never seen anyone shift such vast amounts of food, not even Constance or Ambrose Spike. They were huge eaters, but mere amateurs compared with Basil Stag Hare. Basil wiped his mouth daintily on a napkin. He had impeccable manners to match his insatiable appetite. He gushed forth praise for the Abbey victuals. "Oh, excellent! Absolutely top hole! Do you know, I'd forgotten how good the old tiffin at RedWall could be. I say, my dear,
Would you mind refreshing an old bachelor here's memory? I'd love the tankard of that fine October ale. And perhaps one more portion of your very good summer salad. And I think I could manage another few slices of Friar Hugo's quince pie. Superb. Don't forget the goat's milk cheese with hazelnuts. I'm very partial to that. Cut along now, you little charmer. My word, what an attractive young female girl.
Cornflower sent 2 of her helpers. They had to go the long way around to reach the kitchens. Abbot Mortimer had declared the Great Hall and Cavern Hall out of bounds to all creatures, with the exception of those helping Matthias and Methuselah. Below the newly discovered steps, a pair of lanterns cast pools of golden light into the inky blackness. The 2 mice made their way gingerly down the secret staircase. The moles stayed outside, ready to help if they were needed further. The air was chilly but dry. Deeper and deeper, the 2 friends went until the steps ended at the beginning of a downward winding corridor. It had been neatly dug and shored up with wooden supports. Matthias suppressed a shudder. How long had it been since any creature trod this silent, musty passage? He brushed away cobwebs which disintegrated at the touch of a paw. Methuselah held on to his habit. Now they turned left, now right, then another left turn, left again, then right. Methuselah's voice sounded hollow and eerie.
The passage was probably dug like this to give it extra strength. Have you noticed, Matthias? We seem to be going downward still.
Yes, we must be nearly underneath the abbey foundations, Matthias replied.
The friends pressed onwards. They could not estimate how long they had been following the course of this ancient winding corridor. Methuselah had ventured slightly ahead. Now he halted.
Aha! This looks like the end of the line, he squeaked.
It was a door. Together they inspected it, built of stout timber, banded with iron, beset with florin spikes. The door did not appear to be locked, yet it would not budge. Matthias held his lantern high.
Look, there's some writing on the lintel over the door.
Methuselah read it aloud.
The same as the steps twixt the hall. Remember and look to the centre. My password again is RedWall. That is, you alone are to enter.
The old mouse did not hide his disappointment.
After all the help and assistance that I've given, countless hours of study and valuable time, really.
His words fell upon deaf ears. Matthias was already counting the florin spikes that were driven into the door. Methuselah feigned indifference, but his natural curiosity soon overcame any chagrin he felt at not being allowed to pass the doorway.
Need any help, young mouse?
42, 43... Hush! Can't you see I'm trying to count?
Came the reply. The old gatehouse keeper put on his glasses.
Well, have you solved the riddle all by yourself?
Matthias winked at his companion.
Yes, at least I hope I have. There are 3 clues in the rhyme, you see, the same as the steps. Look to the centre, and the password is RedWall. Now, we must remember that RedWall has 7 letters. If you look at these old-fashioned nails...
Florin spikes,
Methuselah corrected.
Matthias continued. Yes, if you look at these florin spikes, you'll find that they are in rows of 7, the same as the number of letters in RedWall. There are 7 rows of spikes going from side to side, and 7 rows from top to bottom, 49 spikes in all. Therefore, the 25th spike, up, down, or across, is the exact middle spike. The rhyme says, look to the centre. That's this one here.
As Matthias placed his paw on the spike in question, the door swung creakingly inwards. Both mice could feel the hairs standing on their backs as the door opened with agonizing slowness. When it stood fully open, Matthias put his paw around Methuselah's thin shoulders.
Come on, old friend. We go in together, he said.
But the rhyme,
Methuselah protested.
It says that only you may enter.
Matthias answered in a strange, full voice.
He seemed to grow in years and stature. I am that is, old one. Martin is Matthias. As my trusted friend and faithful companion, I say that you may enter with me. Methuselah felt himself in the presence of one many times older than he is.
Lanterns held high, the 2 mice advanced through the doorway. It was a small, low-ceilinged chamber. A stone block rested squarely in the center. The tomb of Martin the warrior. All around the sides of the stone were detailed carvings depicting scenes from Martin's life, deeds of valor and works of skillful healing. Lying along the top of the stone was a life-size effigy of the warrior. He was clothed in the familiar habit of a RedWall mouse, plain, with no trimmings. Matthias stood reverently, Gazing upon the calm features of his own legendary hero in the silence of the small chamber, Methuselah whispered in his ear,
"He bears an uncanny resemblance to you, young one."
As the old mouse spoke, the door behind him creaked shut. Feeling no panic, Matthias turned to look. On the back of the door hung a shield and a sword belt. The shield was a plain, round steel thing of the type carried by warriors of old. The years had not dulled its highly burnished front. As its center was a letter M. The sword belt was in pristine condition, soft and as supple as if it had newly come from the tanner's bench. Shiny black leather, with a hanging tab to carry a sword and scabbard. Its broad silver buckle gleamed in the lantern light. Without a word, Matthias undid his novice's cord girdle, handing it to Methuselah. He took down the sword belt and buckled it about his waist. The belt fitted as if it had been made for him. With great care, he lifted the shield from the door and tried it on his arm. It had 2 grips, one below the elbow, the other for the paw to grasp. It felt oddly familiar to Matthias. There was more writing where the shield had hung upon the back of the door. Methuselah read it.
"By the moonlight, on the hour, in my threshold space lay me. Watched the beam reflect my power, unite once more my sword with me. I am that is, stand true for all. O warrior mouse, protect RedWall."
As in a dream, Matthias gave the door a gentle tug. It opened. By the lantern lights, the 2 mice made their way back from the lonely chamber, back to the familiar warmth and cheer of RedWall Abbey, back to the hot June noonday sun.